She donated bone marrow to save her father's life at 17, then came back and became the fastest woman on earth. He got married, cried at the altar, and 13 days later broke a high school record he set himself. She hadn't run her race in 8 years, then broke a national record on the comeback nobody saw coming. These are not just athletes. These are the most insane, emotional, jaw-dropping comeback stories in the history of track and field. And by the end of this video, you will not believe what these 3 people have been through to become legends. Stay until the end, because the final story will completely change how you see the word sacrifice. Before we go any further, if you love stories about athletes who refuse to quit, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications, because we bring you deep dives like this every single week. Drop a comment telling us which athlete's story hits you the hardest. Now let's get into it. Let's start in a place most people have never heard of. Dooner, South Carolina. A town so small that its entire population wouldn't fill half a football stadium. Just 900 people. Red dirt roads. A community built around faith, family, and hard work. Nobody from Dooner becomes famous. That's just the truth of small-town America. But one girl from this town would go on to become the fastest woman alive. And the road she took to get there is one of the most powerful stories in modern sports. Her name is Melissa Jefferson Wooden. Today, at 25 years old, she holds championship records and medals that put her name in the history books forever. But rewind the clock, and you'll find a story that has almost nothing to do with running at all. It's 2018. Melissa is 17 years old, still in high school, still dreaming about track like every other teenager with a stopwatch and a pair of spikes. Then everything changes. Her father, Melvin, is diagnosed with myelodysplastic syndrome, a rare and dangerous blood disorder. Left untreated, it turns into leukemia. It is, in plain terms, a death sentence if nothing is done. Melvin needs a bone marrow transplant to survive. And without hesitation, without a single moment of doubt, his teenage daughter steps forward. Think about that for a second. Most 17-year-olds are worried about prom, about grades, about their next race. Melissa spent 2 full days in a hospital donating stem cells so that her father could live. Every track dream she had, every ambition, every goal went on pause. Because in her family comes first. Always. That decision, made at 17 years old, tells you everything you need to know about who Melissa Jefferson Wooden really is, long before she ever became a household name. Now here's the part that should give hope to every underdog watching this video. Melissa was not a phenom. She was not the girl college scouts were fighting over. At Carver's Bay High School in Hemingway, South Carolina, her best 100-meter time was a flat 12 seconds. That's a solid time for a small-town athlete, but it is nowhere close to elite. It's nowhere close to what it takes to compete at the highest level of the sport. The big Division I programs never called. The blue-chip recruiters never showed up. So Melissa chose Coastal Carolina University, a program that most fans of elite track and field had never even heard of. And that decision, one that looked like a step down on paper, ended up changing the entire trajectory of her life. Her freshman year, she ran the indoor 60 meters and finished dead last. Dead last. Imagine standing on that track, in front of your new teammates, in front of your new coaches, and crossing the line behind everyone else. For a lot of athletes, that's the moment they quit. That's the moment self-doubt wins. But for Melissa, it became a lesson in composure. It became fuel. That's when Coach Carl Goodman entered the picture. He looked at her and saw something nobody else had noticed. He tore her technique down to the studs and rebuilt it from scratch. Her start, her drive phase, her mechanics, everything. It wasn't instant. It wasn't a highlight reel transformation. It was slow. It was methodical. But the time started dropping, race after race, season after season. By 2022, she was unrecognizable from the girl who finished last in her freshman debut. She won the NCAA Indoor 60-meter championship. She made the U.S. World Championships team. She finished 8th in the 100-meter final in Eugene, Oregon, on the world stage, against the best sprinters on the planet. That's when Nike came calling. Melissa turned professional. She joined an elite training group that included Sha'Carri Richardson and T.T. Terry, 2 of the most dominant sprinters in the world. Every single workout became a battle. Every session pushed the ceiling higher and higher. There were days she came back from those sessions beaten down, physically and mentally. But she kept coming back. Then came Paris, the 2024 Olympic 100-meter final. Melissa crossed the line in 10.87 seconds and won the bronze medal, finishing behind Julian Alfred of St. Lucia and her own training partner, Sha'Carri Richardson. Days later, she helped Team USA capture gold in the 4x100 relay, running a blistering 41.78 seconds as a team. 2 Olympic medals. At her very first Olympics. And still, she graded her own performance AB+. Not because the bronze wasn't real. Not because it wasn't an incredible achievement that most athletes on Earth will never come close to. But because Melissa Jefferson Wooden knew, deep down, that she had more left in the tank. After Paris, Melissa married her husband, Roland Wood II, in March of 2025, in Florida. On their honeymoon, Roland asked her a simple question: "What do you want out of 2025?" Together, they sat down and built what they called a guidebook: goals, dreams, ambitions, all written down in black and white, turning vague hopes into a concrete plan. She hired a personal chef. She overhauled her nutrition from the ground up. She gave up her favorite food in the entire world, Culver's Butterburgers, because she was chasing something bigger than comfort. And then she went to work. 2025 opened with the launch of the Grand Slam Track Series, a brand new professional league created by legendary sprinter Michael Johnson. Melissa didn't just compete, she dominated. She won both the 100 and 200 meters in Kingston, Jamaica in April. Then she did it again in Miami in May, becoming the first athlete in the league's history to win back-to-back Grand Slam titles. Then came Philadelphia. She ran 21.99 seconds in the 200 meters, breaking the 22-second barrier for the first time in her career, and in doing so, she beat Gabby Thomas, the reigning Olympic 200-meter champion. On July 5th, at the world-famous Prefontaine Classic in Eugene, Oregon, she lined up against Julian Alfred, the reigning Olympic champion. In brutal conditions, a 1.5 meter per second headwind working directly against both of them. Melissa ran 10.75. Alfred ran 10.77. 200ths of a second. Melissa won. At the USA Track and Field Championships in August, she ran 10.65 seconds, the 5th fastest time any woman has ever run over 100 meters in the history of the sport. She followed that up by winning the 200 meters in 21.84 seconds. She walked into the World Athletics Championships in Tokyo completely undefeated in the 100 meters for the entire season. Every race, every single time she stepped on the track, nobody had beaten her. This was the moment. The 100-meter final at the World Championships. The field was stacked with legends. Julian Alfred was in the blocks. Sha'Carri Richardson was in the blocks. And in lane after lane sat Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce, 38 years old, running her final individual race before retirement. A woman carrying 5 world titles, 2 Olympic golds, and an almost unbelievable 25 Olympic and World Championship medals across her career. Melissa lined up in lane 6. The gun fired. She never looked back. 10.61 seconds. A championship record. The 4th fastest time ever run in the history of the women's 100 meters. She won by 0.15 seconds, the 2nd biggest winning margin in the history of the World Championships. And in the stands, watching every single stride, was her father, Melvin, the man whose life she had saved 8 years earlier. In her own words afterward, "When the gun went off, I just thought, come on, get out strong." The rest of the race went like a blink. When I crossed the line, I was like, oh wow. 5 days later, she was back on the track for the 200-meter final. Almost nobody had picked her to win it. Even her own coaching staff had nearly laughed when she declared this her goal at the start of the year. She ran 21.68 seconds and won by nearly half a second, leaving Shericka Jackson, the 2-time defending world champion in the event, to settle for bronze, while Amy Hunt of Great Britain claimed silver. From a town of 900 people, from a girl who finished dead last in her college debut, to the fastest woman alive. That is the story of Melissa Jefferson Wooden. Now let's talk about a man who, 13 days after his own wedding, went out and ran one of the fastest times of his career. This is Noah Lyles. On April 4th, 2026, Noah Lyles got married. Just 13 days later, he was standing in starting blocks at a small meet in Florida. No Olympic gold on the line, No world championship crowd roaring in the stands. Just a man barely 2 weeks removed from his wedding day, 7 months away from his best event. He ran 19.91 seconds, the fastest time in the entire field. And that was only the first day. The ceremony took place at the conservatory at Blackberry Ridge in Trenton, Georgia. The theme was all shades of melanin, deep browns and golds woven through every detail, from the suits to the bridesmaids' gowns to the floral arrangements. Noah Lyles married Jamaican sprinter Janelle Bromfield, surrounded by everyone they loved. But the moment that truly stopped people in their tracks had nothing to do with speed at all. Lyles had kept a secret for weeks. Janelle's favorite gospel singer, Tasha Cobbs Leonard, showed up and performed at the reception. Nobody knew it was coming, not even Janelle. Then came the vows. Janelle's hands were shaking so badly that she couldn't hold her own vow book, so Lyles held it for her. Both of them stood at the altar, crying. He later told Vogue, "I ended up holding it for her, but I was also crying, so I couldn't wipe away my own tears." Janelle's story adds even more weight to that moment. She grew up in poverty in Jamaica, raised by a single mother alongside 7 siblings. Her mother passed away in 2021 from stage 4 cervical cancer. Walking down that aisle wasn't just a wedding. It was, in Janelle's own words, proof of everything her mother had once prayed for. There's even a small, sweet twist to the story. Lyles had assumed Janelle would wear a mermaid-style dress, a style he's known to dislike. Instead, she walked out in a princess dress. His reaction went viral online, with some critics claiming he didn't look excited enough. Janelle shut the criticism down herself, saying his reaction was exactly what she needed and exactly what she expected from him. The two had been together since 2022. They were baptized together in October of 2025 and announced their engagement that same month. Most people expected Lyles to take time off after the wedding. He didn't. On April 17, 2026, at the Tom Jones Memorial Invitational in Gainesville, Florida, not a Diamond League event, but a Continental Tour Challenger meet, the kind athletes use to shake off rust without the pressure of a major title, Lyles stepped back into the blocks. He had not run the 200 meters since winning the world title in Tokyo back in September of 2025, 7 full months away from his signature event. He had also skipped the World Athletics Indoor Championships entirely because the dates fell too close to his April 4th wedding, and he chose Janelle over the meet. In the first heat of the Olympic Development 200-meter race, Lyles crossed the line in 19.91 seconds, with a legal wind reading of plus 1.6 meters per second. That time was the fastest in the entire men's 200-meter field, across all 6 heats of the day. Behind him, 2025 USA Outdoor Championships finalist Max Thomas ran 19.98 seconds, the first time in his career he had ever broken 20 seconds. And then there was 18-year-old Tate Taylor, who ran 20.05 seconds, breaking the high school national record that Noah Lyles himself had set years earlier at 20.09 seconds. Let that sink in. The next generation of American sprinters came to Gainesville, chasing down Lyles' old high school records. And Lyles showed up 2 weeks after his wedding and beat every single one of them. Here's WHE. The story gets even more interesting. 2 months before the wedding, Lyles competed at the USATF Indoor Championships in Staten Island, New York, in the 60 meters. He finished 3rd. The man who won that race was Jordan Anthony, who posted 6.45 seconds. Lyles ran 6.51 and finished behind both Anthony and Trayvon Bromell. After the race, Jordan Anthony told reporters that Lyles was bringing old age right now. That quote spread like wildfire. Think about what that means. The reigning Olympic 100-meter champion, the 4-time 200-meter world champion, being called old by his own training partner at Pure Athletics. So what happened next? The morning after Lyles ran that 19.91 in the 200 meters, he came back to the track for a 4x100 relay. His team, Gainesville Elite, included Jordan Anthony, Trayvon Bromell, and 18-year-old British sprinter Zarnell Hughes. Together, they ran 37.78 seconds, and they beat the national squad. And Jordan Anthony, the same man who had called Lyles old just 2 months earlier, ran a personal best of 9.91 seconds in the individual 100 meters that very same day. To be clear, nobody is taking anything away from Jordan Anthony. He was running brilliantly. But it was Lyles who anchored the team that beat everyone on the track that day. Before the 2026 season even started, Lyles said publicly, "I've decided to take this year and say this is a fan's year in our sport." That's not the statement of a man stepping back. That's the statement of a man building something. The schedule tells the story. On May 17th, he raced the 100 meters at the Seiko Golden Grand Prix in Tokyo, the same city where he won bronze at the delayed 2021 Olympics while openly battling depression, and the same city where he stood in front of 59,000 fans in September 2025, holding up four fingers after winning his fourth consecutive 200-meter world title. On June 4th, he headlined the 100 meters at the Rome Diamond League Golden Gala, a meet he hadn't raced since a famous 200-meter battle with Michael Norman back in 2019, one he has called one of his all-time favorite races. On June 28th, he ran the Paris Diamond League at the Stade de France, the exact same track, the exact same stadium, the exact same surface where 2 years earlier he ran 9.79 seconds and became the fastest man alive over 100 meters. He currently holds 6 Diamond League titles, one more, and he owns the outright all-time record. A man who got married on April 4th, who cried at the altar holding his wife's vow book, who hadn't run the 200 meters in 7 months, who had been called old by his own training partner in March. 13 days after the wedding, he ran 19.91 seconds, anchored a relay team to a 37.78 the very next morning, and beat the teenager who had broken his own high school record. Now for a story that might be the boldest of them all. She hadn't raced 800 meters in 8 years. Her last time at that distance was 2 minutes 19 seconds, a time that wouldn't get you anywhere near the front of a serious field. On February 8, 2026, she stepped onto the track in Metz, France, with zero professional experience at this distance. She crossed the finish line in 1 minute 59.07 seconds. A national record. On her debut. Nobody expected it. Once you hear her full story, you'll understand exactly why this is considered one of the boldest moves in the history of track and field. Femke Bol was born on February 23, 2000, in Amersfoort, Netherlands. She started running at just 14 years old. By 15, she was already winning Dutch national titles in the 400 meters, a rare kind of early dominance. In 2019, her coach asked her to try the hurdles for the very first time. She had never done it before in her life. That same summer, she won the European Under-20 title in the hurdles after only a few months of training in the event. In early 2023, she did something that seemed almost impossible. She broke an indoor 400-meter world record that had stood since 1982, an entire generation before she was even born. She ran 49.26 seconds at the Dutch Nationals, erasing Jarmila Kratochvilović's 41-year-old record as if it had never existed. She later lowered that mark again, down to 49.16 seconds. At the 2023 World Championships in Budapest, disaster struck. She fell face-first on the relay track just meters before the finish line and lost the baton entirely, in full view of the world. It looked, for a moment, like a heartbreaking end to a brilliant championship. 3 days later, she came back and won her first individual world title in the 400-meter hurdles. Then she anchored the women's relay team all the way to gold, running from behind. Sports journalists around the world called it the fall and rise of Femke Bol. By 2025, her resume was almost unbelievable. 30 consecutive Diamond League victories, 5 Diamond League titles, 2 World Championship titles, and 4 Olympic medals. She had won nearly everything there was to win. But here's the part almost nobody talks about. Every single time Femke Bol raced against Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone, she lost. 3 races, 3 losses, 0 wins. And that, more than anything, may be exactly why she stepped onto a track in Metz, France, in February 2026, chasing a distance she hadn't touched in 8 years. Because greatness isn't just about defending what you've already won. Sometimes it's about finding a new mountain to climb, especially when the one you know best keeps ending the same way. Before we close this video, let's put these performances into historical context, because these numbers only mean something when you understand what came before them. The women's 100 meters. The current world record of 10.49 seconds was set by Florence Griffith Joyner, Flo Jo, at the 1988 U.S. Olympic trials in Indianapolis. That record has stood for well over 3 decades, longer than most of today's sprinters have been alive, and it remains the single most debated and scrutinized mark in track and field history. Melissa Jefferson Wooden's 10.61-second championship record in Tokyo places her among the fastest women to have ever raced the distance, but Flojo's mark still stands untouched at the very top. The men's 200 meters, the world record of 19.19 seconds belongs to Usain Bolt, set at the 2009 World Championships in Berlin, the same championships where he also lowered the 100-meter world record to 9.58 seconds. Bolt's 200-meter mark from Berlin is widely considered one of the greatest single performances in the history of athletics. Noah Lyle's personal best in the event, 19.31 seconds, run at the 2022 World Championships in Eugene, ranks among the fastest times ever recorded, but it still trails Bolt's mark from more than a decade earlier. The women's 400-meter hurdles and the indoor 400 meters, before Fempbol's 2023 breakthrough. The indoor women's 400-meter world record of 49.59 seconds had belonged to Czechoslovakia's Jarmila Kratochvílová since 1982, a record that predated the fall of the Berlin Wall and outlasted entire eras of sprinting talent. In the 400-meter hurdles, Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone holds the outdoor world record, having lowered it multiple times, most recently down to 50.65 seconds, a mark widely regarded as one of the greatest progressions of any single event in modern track history. Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce's legacy. Before her final individual race in Tokyo in September 2025, Fraser-Pryce had already built one of the most decorated careers in the sport's history. Multiple Olympic 100-meter titles dating back to the Beijing Games in 2008, and a career that spanned nearly 2 decades at the very top of women's sprinting. A longevity almost unheard of in a sport built around explosive speed and short careers. The Diamond League, founded in 2010 as the successor to the old Golden League and IAAF Grand Prix circuits, the Diamond League has become the premier annual series in professional track and field, culminating each year in a final that awards a Diamond Trophy in each event. Multiple Diamond League titles in a single event across different years is considered one of the clearest markers of sustained dominance in the sport, which is exactly why Noah Lyles chasing the all-time record carries so much historical weight. Michael Johnson's Grand Slam track, the league Melissa Jefferson Wooden competed in during 2025, was the brainchild of Michael Johnson, one of the greatest 200/400-meter runners in history, who himself held the 200-meter and 400-meter world records for years after his historic double at the 1996 Atlanta Olympics. His launch of Grand Slam track in 2025 was widely seen as an attempt to reshape how professional track and field is structured, funded, and marketed outside of the traditional Olympic and World Championship cycle. These are the shoulders these athletes are standing on, and the records they are still chasing. That's the story of 3 athletes who refused to let anything, grief, doubt, marriage, or 8 years away from an event, slow them down. If this video moved you even a little, make sure you're subscribed, drop a like, and let us know in the comments which story hit you the hardest. We'll see you in the next one.